We have a real treat for you today. This is sort of a long column or long speech, but it's called A Child's War Living on Orkney. It was given to me some years ago by my friend Patricia Long, who was born and raised and lives on Orkney. And it's very interesting, and I think you'll enjoy it. My name is Beth Freeman, and we're going to get started. It's going to be 5 parts, and I'll tell you what part they are so we won't get confused. Life changed quite abruptly in Stromness when war was declared in 1939, but not in the way we imagine. One regulation said that bakers had to stop decorating cakes and biscuits in this country, cakes and cookies, immediately. My mother, Catherine Leask, and her friend Betty Bullen were the grateful recipients of candy and sugar-coated caraway seeds from Porteous Bakery that stocked their play shop upstairs in the bakehouse for days. A more general benefit was the regulation that ordered shops to close at 5:30. Until then, in the struggling years between the wars, many shopkeepers stayed open until 9 o'clock in the hope of catching the last late customer. The customers soon adjusted. Those who had always turned up at 10 to 9 now arrived at 20 past 5, and nobody complained about being denied their late shopping. During the war years, my grandfather, who was Hardy Leask, who owned a draper's shop in the building now occupied by the Royal Hotel, was one of the many shopkeepers who closed for lunch at 10 to 1 to get home in time for the 1 o'clock news on the wireless. The first air raid in Orkney was at the end of September. Orcadians didn't want to miss the excitement, and my father, Peter Leith in Stenness, and my mother in Stromness both remember that their families standing outside trying to see the planes. Air raid shelters were built beside the schools, but all the children who lived within 2 minutes of their school could run home instead of playing I Spy with teachers in the dark. The Stromness Academy rector, Mr. Learmouth, wanted to know how, if the students could get home in 2 minutes, it took them so long to get back to school after the all clear sounded. His pupils replied that it was all uphill on the way back. Mum did admit that during one raid, as she couldn't see any planes, she thought of taking her boat out for a little row in the harbor, but wisely decided against it. The harsh reality of war came to Orkney very soon when the U-47 got into the flow, that Scapa flow, on 14 October 1939 and sank the Royal Oak with the loss of 833 men. My grandfather and his family were awakened in the early hours of the morning by soldiers hammering on the door to requisition all the blankets in his shop. They refused to say why they were needed, and as people of Stromness looked towards the red glow in the east, there were terrible fears that Kirkwall had been hit. A Stennis man, James Ibester, was the first British citizen killed in the war when he died going to the assistance of neighbors during a raid near the Brig o' Waith in March 1940. But Orkney was at the very limit of the German bombers' range and was well defended by anti-aircraft guns, so there were very few raids. As there were no main electricities in Stromness during the war, the air raid siren was at Wishart Garage at the north end, where the health center is now, so that it could run off of their generator. Now that's the first section, and we'll start number 2 in just a moment. But thank you for joining us. Join us again, please.